We go. Well, good morning and welcome to the King's Road, a show all about Chelsea Football Club, hosted on the very tip of the African continent here in Cape Town. I'm one of your co-hosts, Nick Charlie Key.
And I am the other co-host, Sean, not Gut. Good to see you, Nick.
And you, Sean, good to be talking. And for today's show, I'm sure you are obviously well aware, and so are our listeners, that we have a lot to discuss. A lot has been happening in the life of Chelsea. I think let's kick things off with the proverbial elephant in the room, Thomas Tuchel, the end of an era, and the appointment of his replacement, Graham Potter. Tell me your thoughts initially, just when you heard the news.
Dude, I was working and a friend of mine sent me a message saying Tuchel's gone. And I thought he was joking because obviously that would never, ever happen.
Yeah.
So I jumped on Twitter and saw the official announcement. And I don't think, I sound so bad and a bit dramatic, but I don't think I worked for the rest of the day. It just threw me off. I'm like, why? Like, why? What is going on at our football club that we love so much? It was a big one for me. But you know what happened at the same time? As soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, that sucks. And I was like, I hope we appoint Potter. I hope we get Potter. That was my first thought. And we'll get into that, I'm sure, because I highly rate Graham Potter. But it still stings. I'm super bleak. How did you find it?
That was so funny. I was actually on a Zoom call at the time with a friend of mine and another one of our clients, and we were on a football group together, and another friend of ours messaged that group saying Tuchel's gone, and like you, I thought, man, he's trolling after the loss, to Zagreb, and but the funny thing is, we both got the message at the same time. And he said afterwards, he said he could just, as I read the message, he said he saw my face just drop in that meeting and on the Zoom call. And like you said, I couldn't concentrate for the rest of that meeting. But I mean, it was also about tax, so I wasn't really concentrating anyway. But no, it felt like quite a bombshell coming into the start of a new season. You think the manager's getting backed. He's been backed through the transfer window very publicly with his signings. There's a lot of talk about his signings, his input. I mean, subsequently, they seem to have walked that back a bit in terms of going, no, it's all club signings. The Aubameyang one, I think we'll get onto, but I mean, now they're trying to say, no, the club was also behind it. That felt very Tuchel-esque, in terms of wanting him. But I think we need to start, before we get onto any of that stuff. Where did all of this begin? I mean, where did the unrest start between him and the management?
So if we want to believe Twitter, because Twitter is obviously everything that you see on Twitter is true, it sounds like it started, from my understanding, a few weeks ago. You know what? It was premeditated. Todd Boehly knew what he was doing. And the more I read the reports, the more I'm okay with it, I think. Obviously still really bleak at the whole situation, that we would literally sack probably one of the top 3 coaches in the world. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
That we would do that. He's won us Super Cup, champions of the world, won us the Champions League. And I think I'm slowly getting over it because of all of these stories that are coming out. You look at Fabrizio Romano, who's probably the most reliable. And you're hearing stories of how he had lost players in the dressing room, which you don't think, because you see his relationship on the screen with the players. It looks really good. And obviously, there's some players who are on the bench that you think should be playing. The whole Pulisic thing, we can get into. It seems like there was something going on there, and I strongly believe that Todd Boehly wanted Pulisic as our Captain America poster boy for Chelsea Football Club in order to market it into an American market, which I get. The dude's a businessman. He knows what he's doing. He's managed, run sports clubs, and really successfully, to be honest. I don't know much about the baseball scene. I think he's in baseball. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he's done a good job from what I've heard. So I'm like, this dude knows what he's doing. It was all premeditated. But the more I see the reports, I'm like, it's okay. sucks, but I kind of think that it had to be done. It's like it was almost on the trajectory of this is going to get really bad. So before it even got to that point, with all this in mind, that Todd wants to create a new culture, a new era, and he's got his own ideas. He's like, Tuchel, it's not going to, he's not going to be the guy who's going to be able to do that. So why wait? Unfortunate timing.
Right.
I do think it helps to know that that is the reasons, and it's not because of poor results over the last few games, which I think would be a useless excuse to fire a manager like Tuchel anyway. But It just makes it a little bit easier. And honestly, I'm actually, as sad as I am, I'm very, very excited for the future of the club.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think just to also say, we've got a few people that seem to be watching. If you want to just drop any comments in chat, we can answer anything you guys got any questions on that we are able to answer. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. And we're talking about his man management style. When he came into the club, that seemed to be one of his big strengths, was his man management. It seemed like he was the guy to put an arm around players. He was the guy to get guys on his side. He seemed like he was always on the pitch, fist pumping after games, giving guys big hugs. It seemed like everybody loved him. The fans clearly loved him. And it seemed like something went wrong last season. And I don't know, a lot of the talk seems to be about how good and strong his relationship was with Petr Cech, with Marina Granovskaya. Yes. They seem to work incredibly well together. And so it might be that might be one of the big catalysts for the unrest between him and the ownership now. It also might be the fact that his personal life took a huge dive. I don't want to dig up any, old skeletons out of the closet from his personal life. I mean, we all know, he got divorced. That must be tough on anybody to then go into a job and focus, let alone go into such a high pressure, job in terms of your output, but also in terms of just media scrutiny. And then, also having to be, there's days, we all have days where we, things don't go right. I'll have a day, I'll fight with my wife and then have to go into work. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to sit in my office and do my work and just hide. When you're in a high profile job like that, you don't have the luxury of being able to hide anywhere. You are having to be front and center, in front of these players every day, up tempo, upbeat, making sure they're all, playing to the best of their abilities. But you're also, you're struggling with stuff in the background. Maybe you don't want to be there. You don't want to be talking to people. I don't know. It seemed to be one of his big strengths that then now seemed to be one of the big catalysts for why he left. I mean, there was talk on the tour of him. I don't know if you saw this, holding two separate meetings with the team. Basically split the team into people he believed wanted to stay at the club and people he believed didn't want to be at the club, and had two different meetings with him and said, well, here we'll talk with the guys who want to stay, and for you don't want to stay, we'll have a separate meeting and basically treat them differently. But then you have guys in the side of the squad that you believe don't want to stay, i.e. a Hakim Ziyech, but then you start playing them in the first game, and it just makes no sense. What are your thoughts on why do you think his man management took such a nosedive?
Oh, jeez, bro. It doesn't make sense, because at the same time, you do hear all these reports and it's very hard to know what is true, and I think a lot of the time it's journalists jumping on the moment and trying to sensationalize things. But I've heard exactly the same stories, and I agree with you. When somebody's in that position, when they have gone through such a crazy, a divorce, and your personal life is all out of sync, it's going to affect your work life, like any normal person. And again, as you said, at such a high level, it's just going to be worse. I mean, the fact that you're just managing Chelsea Football Club in and of itself is, I'm sure that's enough stress to kill any mortal man over a period of years. That's probably why we fire our managers every 2 to 3 years, literally to save their lives. But I think it's just natural. I don't see any other reason that he would. And you can see it. Sorry, you can see there was a definite change in Tuchel over the last, maybe even just the start of the season. He hasn't been himself. You can see it. He's just not, small things. He's not getting up from his seat and coaching like he used to do on the side, where he'd actually get up and start coaching, similar to Conte. Most of the time, he's just
Yeah.
been sitting and just watching. Like it's just
Yeah.
so out of character. And I'm not surprised that all of this stuff has come out. When you see it in that context, that all the stuff that he's going through, I heard there was just tons and tons of pressure for him to take more of a hands-on role in the director of football vacancy at the club, and he didn't want to do that. He was saying, "No, I just want to coach. Just leave me alone. I'm a coach. I'm a coach." And he's said that a few
Yeah.
times. I know in the press conference for the West Ham game, he publicly said it. He's like, "I don't want anything to do with that. I just want to coach."
And I mean, fair enough.
So, yeah, 100%, fair enough. And I mean, it's sad. It really is sad because he is one of the best coaches in the world. And it's just unfortunate that Todd's got a different vision for the club, and it didn't suit Tuchel, unfortunately. I think Todd would honestly want to make it work coming in. But I think he quickly saw, hey, this dude is not going to give us what we want. We want a coach that's way more hands-on, who's high in communication, lets us know what is happening at a grassroots level. And I guess that's the type of leader that he wants to be as an owner. And sounds like Tuchel couldn't do that. And I'm like, it's a business. It's a results-oriented business. And sad as it is, that's what it is. And it sucks and it's hurtful. And I cried myself to sleep, but here we are.
Well, that's the truth. I mean, I think you made a good point about the Conte comparison. I mean, it felt the same, in that last little stretch with Conte, where you could tell he didn't want to be there. He felt grumpy in all of his meetings. He was also very similar to Tuchel. He had quite a charismatic personality in his press conferences. He seemed like, look, I think he was a lot more fiery, and I think he is a lot more fiery than Tuchel. I mean, you can see they're
Don't
similar
you just hate him now?
I don't know. Like I do. I hate him because he's Spurs now, but I still hold an affinity for him. Man, the way that Conte transformed our club. I mean, he did a very. I find that they're very similar managers. I mean, Conte came in, made a tactical switch and blew away the league. In that one season.
Yeah.
And Tuchel came in, did a tactical switch. We didn't concede a goal for 10 games or something. I mean, the guy clearly is a genius. And like you say, he's an elite level manager, but you can't. It's the same as having an elite level player at your club. If they don't want to be there, or if they're not performing, it doesn't matter how elite they are, they can't stay because it's going to become toxic. And I say that loving Tuchel. I'm not by any means an advocate for Tuchel out. I was very much behind Tuchel, thought and believed he could turn it around. But at the same time, we were seeing, if you look at the stats, they've been flying around Twitter. They've been flying on all of these articles on The Athletic and, all those other big publications about how our attack just was stagnating. He didn't seem to have the answers in attack. No. And the problem with that is that we were used to be a team that could score a goal and know we weren't going to concede under Tuchel. And that was no longer the case. We were conceding with regularity. From open play, from set pieces, our discipline was bad. And now if you can't bank on keeping a clean sheet, you can't then bank on that Mourinho-esque, steal a goal and shut up shop, because we just couldn't.
Sure.
So something was going wrong. He didn't look like he had the fix for it. I think that at some point you could just see he was emotionally checking out. And as much as it hurts and as much as you go, maybe give the guy more time, I think our initial reactions were shock, and I think that the more that's coming out, I think even the hardened Chelsea fans who were behind him go, I don't know if we actually had another option now,
No.
But I also don't know how much of that is like that big American spin machine, I'm sure Boehly has a PR agency pumping out things to publications going like, oh, well, this happened in the background and this happened and this happened. And, basically to make sure that the fan base doesn't turn on them. I don't think the fan base will. I mean, I think that we know that there's a bit of a longer term plan in place. And I think we'll talk about that when we get onto Potter. But now I think the big thing we have to talk about in terms of the end of the Tuchel era is, because we know he was so well backed in the transfer market. It was basically, so they said, a lot of his decision making. He was very involved. They were calling him multiple times a day. He didn't want to be there. He kept sending his agent apparently to these transfer meetings. How many of the big transfers did we miss out on in the last 2 years because of his maybe stubbornness or maybe reluctance to take a longer term view? He wanted more of a win now, and I mean that doesn't actually fit in with the whole Ronaldo saga, because right now, if it was someone else, maybe we'd have Ronaldo. Do we want Ronaldo? I don't know if we actually want Ronaldo. I don't know if that would fit into our team play. I think I'm quite happy not to have him. But one of the big misses is last season, his decision to prioritize bringing in Saul over Tchouaméni in the midfield, and then maybe hoping that we get him this summer, and then we get snaked by Madrid. You look at some of those what ifs in the transfer market, and also similarly, and I think this is a big thing. I'd love to get your opinion on it. It felt to me with the him getting rid of Tammy Abraham, with him getting rid of Billy Gilmore, with him getting rid of Fikayo Tomori, and you look at these guys. Tammy's gone on to smash Serie A. Since he's gone to Roma, and maybe you can say it's a different system, it's a different manager, it's a different league. They're maybe not playing against low blocks as much as Chelsea did, but you're bringing in a striker like Aubameyang, who is a proven goal scorer, but he and Tammy are cut from the same cloth. They are strikers made in the same mold, and I would say when you've got two strikers the same, and you've got one who's arguably 10 years younger than the other. Why wouldn't you have just kept Tammy around?
Yeah. And I think what you're saying, it plays into that vision for the club that I know, or that we could see Todd Boehly has, in terms of wanting to look to the future, look to the brightest, youngest talent, which we have done really well this transfer window, by the way, to acquire. So we have seriously bought some of the top talent, excluding Endrick, that Brazilian oak, but he's 16 years old. So in 2 years' time, and I've heard some good reports, like we are leading the race for that, like ahead of Barca and Madrid, which is incredible. But that's Todd's vision. He's like, it doesn't seem like we are instant. Maybe it's just for this season, instant success. He doesn't want instant success. And I appreciate that, because I think Chelsea's been living off instant success, and it's what we do. We win trophies even when our club is falling apart and players don't want to play for the club. We'll still win a Champions League. It's great. And I hope that never ever changes. But at the same time, it's like I feel like we haven't had that longevity, that vision for the club. Like, this is where we are going. This is our identity. This is our philosophy as a club, which Liverpool, for instance, I think have done well. City have nailed that in the last few years. You see them, you know where they're going. Liverpool are falling apart at the moment, which is like one of the best things ever. But they have it, and it is. They have it, and I think Thomas Tuchel didn't want that. I think he got to a point where he was managing a top club, and he felt like he deserved instant success, and rightfully so. I think he's worked incredibly hard. He's proved himself to be an elite manager, and I'm like, why not? Why not buy the best players? Why not buy whoever you want? And maybe if Roman was still here, different story. We would have signed a Ronaldo. Maybe not Ronaldo, so we can get onto Ronaldo. Ronaldo, I think, is a completely different story. But we would have signed some of the best players to back him. And I think it shows Tuchel doesn't want to go for youth anymore. He obviously grew up as a youth coach, and he relied on youth. But that was the season that he was in. He was a youth coach. It's like it's what he had at his disposal. He couldn't spend 60, 70 million on a player. But when you get to that top level, you now have the ability and the resource to do that. So obviously, you're going to, everything's going to change. Your philosophy is going to change. He's not a youth coach anymore. And I get that. And it's two different philosophies, I think, just coming together. They clashed. Unfortunate timing. I do think it sucks that he sent Billy Gilmore away, that he sent Tomori away, that he sent all these other players away who, top talents. I'm so glad that we put a buyback clause on. No, it was a loan, for Colwell, because he's going to be one of our top centre backs. Almost like John Terry's story right there. And I'm pretty sure what's his face, Potter's going to want him back next season. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Lukaku, all these stories. But going back to Ronaldo, you said you would not want him, right?
No.
At Chelsea. Okay, why?
I think it's a difficult one, right? Because the logic dictates why not? Why wouldn't you? Because I mean, the guy's a proven goal scorer. But I think for all the same reasons as probably Tuchel, and all the same reasons that you kind of have heard whispers from at other clubs, from Juventus and things there, and you've seen how it's affected some of the players, most notably like a Bruno Fernandes at United. It seems like he comes in and he is such a like a force that he almost eclipses other players, and everything becomes so focused on him that it has to go to him all the time, that your system doesn't become a system. It becomes a get the ball to Ronaldo type thing. But at the same time, you can see that when he's at the level now, and I mean, it's hard to say, because I don't think anybody has the right to be a prima donna. But I mean, the guy's earned the right to dictate his own future, kind of. But at the same time, when he doesn't get his own way, he's not like a Kepa or a Jorginho or someone who's like humble and can go, right, we're just going to keep plugging away. The dude will throw his toys out the cart, and he will become a toxic force in your dressing room. That's my concern. And he's not a long-term solution.
And
the dude's like he's like a 37-year-old. I mean, he's not a long-term solution, you know?
No, he's not. And if you watch him play for United at the moment, the times where he comes onto cameo, he hasn't been doing much. And I mean, obviously it's Ronaldo. He's got the talent, and I get it. And maybe there's a bit of a confidence knock there, and it affects his play. But it's arguable that United are playing way better without Ronaldo on the field. So I'm 100% with you, Nick, for exactly the same reasons. I think Tuchel was the same from what I understood. He didn't want him. I think Boehly wanted him because of the marketing value, and he's a businessman. And it's a bit hard to get your head around, because I feel like we've had we're from South Africa, right? So we're not like one of those guys who go to Stamford Bridge. We're like a member. So we don't feel those type of feelings being part of the club. But at the same time, it still feels like a bit of a gut punch to the club. And I feel like we've kind of lost now that feeling of almost like a home club. And now it's become this almost like business corporation. That's the kind of feeling that I get that we're about to step into, where it's going to be very marketing driven, which is okay. And I know Bodie's got plans to like go into the US and make Chelsea like number one in the market, which I get. And there's a massive market there, and yes, blah, blah, blah. That's okay. But you do feel like now we've lost a bit of almost like that identity of who we were. And I don't know if it's because Roman was a Chelsea fan first and foremost. I mean, he would pour his heart and soul and his money into the club, and he would give everything for the club. And you just felt that. I was like, this is a great club. And I just pray that we don't go down that road and become one of those big marketing type, corporation type clubs where we just don't have a soul anymore. But
geez, I mean, you want to talk about clubs with no soul. I mean, look at what Barcelona's become.
Awesome.
I mean, they are.
Jeez,
I just don't understand. You know, you go probably one of, and their whole motto, more than a club. You know, we're a family. You're not a family. Look how you're treating your players. No. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace what's going on there at the moment. And you're right. I don't ever want to become like that.
No, 100%. Do you see what they did to Griezmann? That they're filing a lawsuit against him, like for 40 million. Like, it's no. I just hope we never get down there.
Barca are a joke, and I hope we never become like that. I think you're right. I think so. So Boehly has a different potential end goal in mind. But I would say all of the talk before the takeover was, guys, don't expect that it's going to continue like it has been. it's gonna be more frugal times, and then Boehly comes in and
Yeah.
drops £250 million or whatever on transfers.
World
You go like,
record.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think there's a lot of things we don't know the answers to. There's a lot of speculation we can make around what he's going to do, and I think that time and time again in the however many months Bowley's been in charge, we don't know what he's going to do because that guy keeps
No.
surprising us, as we can see with the transfers, with the
Yeah.
with the sacking of Tuchel, all of that kind of thing. We don't actually know what he's going to do. My concern, just to go back to the youth, is that, and I'm going to say it here now, is that
Sad.
this this felt like I'm going to say with Billy specifically, and maybe Tammy to an effect.
Yes.
I think that there's an element of this that's gonna have felt like when Mourinho cleared out our youth and we lost Lukaku,
Mm.
De Bruyne, and Salah,
Mm.
all under
Yep.
Mourinho. And at the time, we all thought,
Yep.
oh, back the manager. We got to focus on the now. And look how that came back to bite us. And we sold Gilmore. And I don't understand because I mean
Mm.
that guy, every time he played, every time he stepped foot on the pitch, man of the
It's
match, man of the
class.
match, man of the match.
Yeah.
He went to Scotland at the Euros, man of the match, man of the match.
Yep.
In the Champions League, man of the match. I mean, the
Yeah.
guy, he's unstoppable. And then you go and sell him for what,
Yeah.
£10 million? For what? For what?
Yeah.
And I'm worried that in 5 years' time, Billy Gilmore is going to be the next Frankie De Jong, going for 100 million.
Totally. Yeah.
And so that is my big concern, and I'll say that now. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe it was right. We've had big expectations of players in the past. Your Josh McEachrons who's now playing League One or League Two. You never quite know what their trajectory is going to be. But I have a concern about Billy specifically. That kid looked like he had everything in his locker to make it. I think before we move on to Potter, we finish up with Tuchel. I think the last thing I would just want to talk about is Aubameyang. The big
Yes.
reunification, striker, manager, love each other.
59 minutes.
Yeah, 59 minutes or 57 minutes, however much it was on the pitch. I mean, if you're Aubameyang right now, what are you thinking?
I don't know. Was he getting much game time at Barca? I wasn't really following his career at Barca too much. Like,
he was doing pretty
was he
well. I mean,
playing much?
I think he almost single-handedly got them into the Champions League for the season, from what I understand.
Oh, really?
I think there was a
Yeah.
stat I saw that I mean, look, once again, a lot of the stuff that we read is, who knows where we get it from. But I think I saw a stat. He scored like 11 goals in 19 games at one point for them. So, I mean, the guy was on fire. So
Yeah.
he's a proven goal scorer. But I think, for him making the move back to the Premier League, what is he thinking now going, and they've obviously all come out now going, no, the owners have assured him you were a club signing. We're still happy to have you here. But I mean, they can't do anything but say that. They have to say that, right?
No, for sure. But don't you think, this is why I say it's all premeditated, don't you think that some of these signings, some of these, like, oh man, there was an example I thought of just the other day. I don't think it was all Tuchel. I think in the back of Todd's mind, he was thinking, oh, geez, this might not work out. I need to get some players, though I do think Aubameyang was a Tuchel signing. Here's the thing. Like, Chelsea have a serious striker issue, right? We basically don't know how to score goals to save our lives.
Can't finish.
Yet we still win trophies. I just love it. Just rile up all our rival fans. It's just great. But I think with Aubameyang, he's coming to a club where he's guaranteed to be our starting striker and our star. And the point man, he would have loved to have joined up with Tuchel again. At the same time, bro, I'm like, it changes. And you look at Pulisic. Pulisic was in the same team as Aubameyang at Dortmund with the same coach, Tuchel. And now it's just completely different. I'm sure he absolutely loved the fact that Tuchel was coming in when we sacked Frank. And he was like, yes, I get to work with this old coach again. But it didn't work out like that. So I'm sure to some point Aubameyang was excited to work with Tuchel, but I think more than anything else, he saw a gap where he could be the main guy, similar to Sterling, I think. And Sterling kind of publicly said that he wants to win the Ballon d'Or. He wants to be the main guy that the team relies on, and all power to him. I think he's a great player. He's closest thing we've had to Hazard since Hazard left. And I think it's slightly more that Aubameyang saw the gap and he's like, he's played in the Premier League. This is my thing. He's Premier League proven. He's a goal-scoring machine. Sure, he's, 33 years old, but nowadays, he's still got 2 to 3 years left in him at like a seriously good level. And I think he's going to do really well for us. I think he wanted to work with Tuchel, but it's just it sucks. It's just really ironic that he pitches up and then loses the coach that he wanted to work with. Though I think Potter is absolutely going to make him cook and score lots of goals.
Yeah. I think, just to echo, I think I was always terrified of Aubameyang when we played against Arsenal. I was always terrified of him. I loved him, and there was talk before he went to Barca. There was talk that we were in the running for him, and I thought, oh, what a coup!
Yes.
What a coup that would be if we got him,
Yeah.
And so I'm stoked. I'm stoked to have Aubameyang on board. I think it's going to be a great addition to the team. My concern is how he left Arsenal. He had he left under a cloud. He wasn't gelling with the team or the manager. Is he going to be a problem in the dressing room now? Who knows? So it's one of those things we can only speculate on. But I will say this now. I think you made a good point. I think it's time for us to move on from Tuchel now, as we do have to with our club, and move onto Graham Potter. Yeah. Bring those tears, bring those tissues.
Sad.
But so moving on to Graham Potter, we're talking about problems in the dressing room potentially. We talking about a fractured dressing room that he's walking into. There's people that are unhappy. There's people that are feel like the manager hasn't given them a fair shot or hasn't listened to them or has been And I'll say this. This is one of my bugbears with Tuchel as well. He played people out of position a lot. He didn't seem to maximize people's potential. So you got guys like Conor Gallagher, and he's trying to play them as a 6. The guy's never going. And then you wonder why he's not performing. He's not a 6. He's an 8, and he proved that at Palace. You need to play him in his best position.
Yeah.
So you got Potter coming in now, and I'll throw this over to you for comment. But one of the great things that I actually saw last night on Twitter was an interview with him talking about how he has a master's degree in emotional intelligence. He basically He's basically studied man management as a degree. What better guy to come in to heal a fractured dressing room, to get guys back on board, to make them feel like they're important and part of a team? What are your thoughts on that?
Yep. I firstly love the fact that you can get a master's in emotional intelligence. Like, how cool is that? It just sounds so great. This is the thing. I'm like, and as soon as Tuchel left, I said, like, Potter, because like when Brighton came into the Premier League and Potter was their manager, you've never seen a match, or you never heard of a match. I don't watch all the Brighton matches, obviously, but you've never seen one where they've been hammered like 8-0, or they've gone through a rough patch where, oh dear, they're going to get relegated. Not from my memory, maybe I'm a bit off there, sorry, in terms of floating around relegation. But what I remember is just like gradually and slowly, they started getting a name for themselves as a club that plays fantastic football, has some players who nobody heard about, and he's elevating their profile and making them better and better and better each week. And then to the point where they are like at the moment, and it's sad that they've lost Potter on their part, but they're like sitting in like number 4 position and like slaying some serious giants in the Premier League, and like successfully, not just getting away with it once off, but they are constantly becoming like trouble for some of the top clubs, which shows you everything you need to know about him as a coach. In terms of the emotional intelligence, I heard that Boehly, and I forget the other co-owner's name, when they saw that he had a master's in emotional, yes, that's it. When they saw that he had a master's in emotional intelligence, that was a bit of a deal breaker for them. They saw that this guy can coach. He's got a beautiful philosophy. I don't subscribe to supporting two teams like some of my friends do, which is the weirdest thing as a football fan. But if people ask me like, what other club do you enjoy watching? Over the last while, I would say to them Brighton, and it would just be Brighton. I'm like, that philosophy, that style, that it's just beautiful. It's quick. It's on the eye. It just looks really good. So they saw that. A coach, up and coming English coach. I think he's going to be the first English manager to win the league for sure, and he's going to do it with us. But they saw at the same time this dude can manage. He's studied it. He's proven it. He's been in the business for a while. Sure, not at like a top level like Chelsea, but you do have to take the risk. You do have to take the gamble. I mean, look at Pep. Pep, perfect example. He just jumped straight into the Barca job and he just hit it out of the park. And I'm not saying that he's going to do the same thing in any way, but I think he is the perfect man for the job. There was talk of Pochettino coming in, and apparently Pochettino had said yes to joining us. And I'm so glad that we didn't get him. Good coach. Yeah, good coach for winning nothing. But, and he's just Spurs. When you think of him, you associate him with Spurs. And I'm like, just, no, like, wouldn't have worked. I mean, we would have just rejected him.
That's the thing. I think you look at someone like a Pochettino and you go, the guy really hasn't performed well. I mean, he's overperformed with a mediocre Spurs team and still won nothing, right? So that got him the job.
No, Nick, they won the Audi Cup. All right.
My apologies. One day we'll get to those heights of the Audi champions. But that job, overperforming with a mediocre Spurs team, got him linked to United, got him linked to all these top clubs around the world, got him linked to the Madrid job, got him linked to PSG, and he got the PSG job. And what did he do? He underperformed with probably the most stacked team in history. I mean, you couldn't. 100%. You look at that squad. They had. I mean, they had some of the best players in the world, and they had some of the best players in the world as backups for their best players in the world, and he still underperformed. You can't look at that and go, this guy is an elite level manager. He's a good manager. He's not an elite level manager. Yes. And I don't think, unfortunately for us, I don't think we can say that Potter is an elite level manager either yet.
100%.
Right? Yes. That's the thing. So maybe he'll get there. He's not there yet, but I think that's the beauty of what Boehly's trying to build. Is that the thought is maybe, and I think it's a gamble. I think everybody accepts that it's a gamble to some degree. But we'll see it. And you've spoken into a lot of the pros of him as a man and him as a coach and his style of play. And I think a lot of the big benefits of him coming in is his tactical flexibility. You've seen how he changes shape during games. We've seen how he sets up. He's got quite a similar setup to Chelsea. He's often played five across the back or three at the back, obviously, and then two wing backs. So it's not a major overhaul technically and tactically for our team. But just like with Pochettino, we didn't want him because of the Spurs connection. One of the things we love about Graham Potter, he turned down the opportunity to manage Spurs. Why do you think he did that?
He wanted a top 4 club. It's great.
But I mean, you look at something like that and you think it's, you turn down Spurs because you think it's not a great fit in terms of maybe working with Daniel Levy or whatever. But he comes out of a club where he's had so much backing, so much support, so much stability at Brighton, and so why come to Chelsea? Why would he come to Chelsea? What do you think?
I mean, honestly, why not? If any manager in the world has the opportunity to manage Chelsea, they're not going to outright reject it. From what I've seen online, it sounds like Todd has a plan in order for like a long-term future, something that's sustainable, and he wants a manager that could be involved in that process. And this is, again, it comes back to everything being premeditated. The fact that we sorted this Potter thing out like so quickly, I'm sure there was conversations in the background beforehand, so I don't know. I think you can't not. If Chelsea come knocking, I don't want to be entitled, and sound like a United fan right now, but you are going to look at it. You're going to say, yeah, definitely. I'm interested. I'm 100% interested. And I think him and Todd obviously spoke, and he saw that he has an opportunity to do something with young people who we are, all these young players that we're buying. We have like a vision, a future. Todd obviously saw his style of play, his philosophy. He's like, this is what we want at Chelsea. You match the criteria. And this is one of the biggest clubs in the world, and we've got resources to back you. I think it is a bit of a no-brainer for Potter. Like, no disrespect to Brighton. You've heard how I highly respect them as a club and the football that they play, but it's like he had no other choice in a weird way, you know. Just everything lined up, like an owner who has a certain philosophy, has a vision for the club. He's obviously laid that out. Potter saw it and he said, "Yep, this matches perfectly. Like, I'm going for it," and that's why I'm excited. Like, honestly, I'm very, very excited for the future. And it's a gamble, as you said. Potter hasn't managed at this type of level. We haven't seen him in Europe. We've obviously seen him in the Premier League, which is great that he's got some experience there. But who knows? We might become. Yeah, I really, really hope that we do well in Europe. So, I mean, it's a completely different story to the Premier League, and Potter has to prove that and show us what he can do. But I'm like, no, if Chelsea come knocking, bro, and you're a manager, you got to look at it. And honestly, that's it.
I think,
like,
look, I mean,
story. I'm very glad that he's here.
Yeah, me too. And I think that was the same as when Tuchel came. He was fresh off having left PSG, was meant to go on sabbatical, and then basically said, "Look, when Chelsea comes knocking, you don't say no." And I think that's interesting. It's interesting to hear that from coaches. I'm assuming there is a tier of coach out there that would happily say no. I don't know. Zidane's name was getting thrown around. I don't know if he would have come. I don't know if his English is good enough. I don't know if he wants to manage in the Premier League. There's a lot of things like that. But I think what's going to be interesting to see from a Graham Potter, specifically tactically, is that the way it's not only about how you set up your team to play, it's about how teams play against you. And I think one of the big things that Potter wouldn't have necessarily faced is that Chelsea, because of who we are, because we're a big club, we tend to get faced with low blocks. We just get tactically
100%.
shut down. And that was one of the big things that Tuchel couldn't figure out. He couldn't figure out how to break down these low blocks. And my fear is with Potter, from what I was reading, is that his philosophy is always make space to find a pass. And Chelsea's problem isn't passing. Chelsea's problem is shooting. We don't shoot enough. And I think that the problem with Potter, from what I've read, potentially, is that he tends to favor that same philosophy of, like, he wants a beautiful goal. He wants it to have been a good passing maneuver, and he wants the systems to work, and the triangles and the passing lanes and all that kind of stuff, and the transition to work a certain way, very similar to a Sarri, I might imagine, in terms of their sort of like tactical setups. I don't know. I haven't seen him close enough, and no one's seen him manage a team like Chelsea, so we can only speculate. My concern is that even you saw in the Zagreb game, I think it was Aubameyang. He got the ball in the box. He had a sight on goal and decided to cut it back to Sterling. Why not shoot? You're Aubameyang. Why not shoot? It's the same story in the games when Loftus-Cheek has those things. They don't trust themselves. They don't back themselves. Maybe because it's a thing they've been told. You must always, unless you're 100% sure you're going to score, don't shoot. That's ridiculous. That's why our XG is so low. If you look at this, I mean, we need to take the chances that we're given. So who knows what's going to happen? But it's going to be interesting to see how he faces playing teams that's set up differently according to what he's used to. So, we'll see that. We want to get onto his contract. 5-year contract, £60 million contract. That's a long contract.
It's nice
for a club like Chelsea, because we know that historically we don't give long contracts because we don't have to pay out long contracts when we end up inevitably firing a manager. Does this, do you think, signal a mutual trust from the owners to Potter, saying, here's a sign that we are going to back you, and we're going to give you the
Yes.
time that you might need. Um, does it say to him, we're in it for the long haul, we want to build something with you, like a Klopp did at Liverpool, and if you
Yes.
struggle for a few seasons
Yeah.
and you don't win anything, it doesn't matter, because that's not the end goal. Trust the process. Is that what your thinking is?
Yeah. 100%. I think the owner has publicly stated that's what he wants. And I think that contract was a practical way of showing everybody, this is my, stake in the ground. And hey, it could be a bumpy ride for Chelsea fans for the next few seasons, because Potter could not work out. It could get really bad. I'm not saying relegation in any way, because our squad is way too good for that. But it could be bumpy. It could be we miss out on Europe for a few seasons, because we have seen a coach and they see what he can do and they want to back him. And I think this is now the difference. We don't have a Roman anymore, who in the past, if that would happen, it's like, cheers, you're out. It sounds like, from everything that we've seen, and this is it might sound a bit funny to rival fans who are watching us and saying, aha, there's another coach gone. Todd's like a new Roman. He's just going to fire as soon as results go bad. But that's not the case, as we've seen. It's actually the complete opposite. He's wanting to lay down something long-term for the future. And I've heard his LA Dodgers, the team that he has in the States, the baseball team, that coach has been there for 8 years. So he's got a track record of sticking it out, and they were apparently one of the worst teams in the whole league there, and he's completely turned that team around to they are one of the best now. So I mean, I'm prepared for that. I don't know if the rest of Chelsea fans are. I hope
that's
that
the problem, man.
This time it's different. Yeah, it is the problem. We can sit here on the other side of the world, but we aren't, as I said, one of those diehard members who make up like almost the fabric of the club, where we are members watching every week. And I'm sure it's a different story there. And I'm pretty sure they get over it, and as we've seen, they want to hold, not riots, but whatever it may be, just to show the disappreciation for some of the decisions of the club. So let's just hope it doesn't get there.
Yeah.
And we back coach, we back the owner, and we just back this vision that we are going for.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you'd be surprised. I think that I've always been surprised by the actual in-person support. They seem, I mean, I've watched a few games live there, and you get into the vibe, and it always seems obviously quite jovial, quite positive. But
Yeah,
I've always been surprised at how much grace has been given by home support to managers who have struggled, to players who have struggled. Think about how much support the fan base gave to a Torres or to a Werner or to these guys who are misfiring, and they just back them. They just back them and back them and back them, and I think it's great. My concern is always, and who cares really, is your online toxic Twitter fan who just wants to. They just want to win now. They just want to win now all the time. And then as soon as something goes wrong, you see these guys, well, I'm going to go support another club. Good. Go support another club. Get out.
Go for it. Yeah. 100%. On that note, people should follow us on Twitter, by the way.
Yes, please do go follow us on Twitter. I think our link is in our description.
That's right.
But are we talking about, I think the last thing I want to maybe say on Graham Potter before we start to wrap things up is interestingly enough, reports coming out this morning that initially it caught me a bit off guard, saying that he was going to now have a say in the appointment of the new sporting director. And I thought, in my mind, it should be the other way around. It should be the sporting director has a say in who the coach is, because obviously they are, that's part of the bigger vision for the club, which is the mandate of the sporting director. However, we don't have the luxury of doing that. I think obviously that is the best way forward. We don't have the luxury of doing that. So what the next best thing is, initially I thought, well, why give Potter a say in it? And then I thought, because you want him to have buy-in to who this person is that he has to work so closely together with. And if you're going to build something long-term, rather get someone that the coach goes, yeah, cool, let's do this, let's work together, as opposed to management installing someone in a sporting director role that the coach goes, I don't want this guy here. And then you end up in the same boat and you
For sure.
you have bad
No,
vibes.
for
So
sure. And I heard a rumor that, I mean, it's contrary to what you're talking about right now, that we apparently have a director of football pretty much lined up, and it was off of his suggestion that we go for Potter that Todd Boehly started like turning his head away from Tuchel towards a Potter. I don't know how true that is, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's one or two that are in the background that they've been talking to, and this is public knowledge that we need a DOF, and we've been looking at one. But I did see a report that some conversations happen between those people, whoever they are, those director of football potentials, saying, hey, like, if this is your vision, there's a dude over in the south of England who's playing some really good football. It's got a good philosophy, and I'm sure they pulled out all the stats because that's kind of what we're going to move towards as a football club. So I don't know. I don't know. I see both sides. I love the fact that Potter has a bit of a say in it, because you do want to work with people who are like-minded and not yes men in any way. But I think it is helpful that he has a say, and I'm sure he's blessed to have that, because not many managers nowadays get that. They don't get much of a say. It's just do your job as a coach, and these are the players that you get, and you just got to deal with it. So it sounds like it's not going to be like that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think, it's interesting times. It's interesting to see where we're going to go. I think we can only speculate as to what's going to happen. So I think in closing, for the immediate future, we've obviously just seen the big news of Her Majesty the Queen passing away yesterday afternoon, which is obviously a very sad state of affairs. I think globally. I mean, she's a global icon.
Sure.
And so, it's always sad. I think she's had a great innings, and she seemed to pass peacefully, which is good. Pragmatically, because we are a football show, we talk about these things. It seems now that it might have some impact on sport. I know that it's affecting the cricket, and it's affecting some golf tournaments. They are talking about whether it will affect games this weekend. As of the time of recording of this show, I haven't seen anything saying that it 100% will affect. They're still going to figure out the guidelines. Pragmatically, Sean, if games are cancelled this weekend, and I don't want to say blessing in disguise, I don't want to ever say the Queen's passing is a blessing. Let's just say scenario-wise, is this potentially a boon for Potter? Instead of being thrust immediately into a game this Saturday, your game's cancelled. All of a sudden, you have 4 or 5 days with the squad to now actually get to know them, implement some tactics, get them on the training ground and go, hey guys, start of a new era. Here's what we're going to do. Instead of going, hey guys, we've got a game in 24 hours. Let's just try throw something together. What are your thoughts?
Like 100% think that is probably the best thing. He's almost got like a mini preseason to work with the players now, because it'd essentially be 2 weeks, right? If it gets cancelled. I've just had a look on the website, though. If the Fulham game is cancelled and they shift it to another date, it means that his first game would be against Liverpool at Stamford Bridge, which probably the best time to play Liverpool, honestly.
True.
With Salah misfiring and Trent Alexander-Arnold just taking some Sunday walks throughout the game.
My goodness!
At the same time,
watching those replays of Trent, what a joke! The guy, I mean, what is he doing? It's like, he should rather be in the stands. He's just watching the game.
100%.
If anybody says that, even tries to compare Reece to him anymore, get out.
No, get out. Get out. But that'll be interesting. At the same time, I'm like, Liverpool could just smash us, because it's the Premier League and anything can happen. But that's a big one. Big one to go into as your first match.
It will be. But I think, maybe also good that he'll have, potential the new manager bounce. You never know. But also, people will always have grace for your first game, especially when you're going into something like that.
Sure.
As long as you don't get pumped like 5-0, I think you'll be fine. So Sean,
Yeah,
anything else that you want
I
to
agree.
touch on today before we close out this episode?
No, I think that's it. It's good to join you, Nick, and thanks for
Yeah.
the people who join us online. Um,
Yeah.
that's it. I don't have anything else.
Cool. Yeah, great. Thank you for everybody who has watched or listened to this, which is our very first episode. We are excited to
Yeah,
be bringing this show to you on a regular/semi-regular basis. We'll be always reacting to what's going on. There's always something going on in the life of Chelsea. I think today we've had a good overview of where
always.
we find ourselves. And as always, Sean, thank you for the catch up. We have very interesting times ahead.
Thanks, man.
Imagine not being a Chelsea fan. Hey,
I
all you have
know.
to care about
I know.
is just the league every season.
Yeah.
So boring. For us, it's a never-ending soap
Yes.
opera. You never know.
Yeah. So true.
And the best part is it's
Uh,
free. All right. Well,
yep.
we'll be back again probably next week with the ongoing madness that is Chelsea. More than likely, we'll be chatting about how Stamford Bridge has either burnt down in the interim week, or they've discovered some more of Paul Pogba's buried hyenas under the Cobham training ground. You never know what happens with Chelsea. Something interesting is always afoot. For now, thank you for
Oh, yeah.
joining us. You can chat to us on Twitter at the Kings Road CFC. And you can subscribe wherever you are watching or listening from. Sean, best of luck for the weekend, man, whatever that means. And we'll chat again soon.
You too, Nick. Cheers, man.
Cheers, buddy.